I think I set the wrong scene here, but welcome to the show, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. I meant to give our disclaimer, so let me just throw that up real quick. And we're live! Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Always a pleasure to get on this show with you and share what I know about the secondary mortgage market, the distressed debt industry. Today's episode is very exciting because we're talking about the post-servicing transfer process, which is a crucial part of the equation when you are acquiring mortgage notes. What do you do next after you've bought the loan, transferred it to your servicer, and need to start on the collection or resolution process? So I appreciate having you all here. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. If there's any issues at all, I will make sure to adjust. There's always technical difficulties, as you guys know. But before we get into the show, I want to thank 15 users for signing the non-disclosure agreement this week. Actually 15. We got Karen, Jose, Joseph, Kayana, Mark, Allison, Youngmi, Charles, Luke, Matt, Darius, Brad, James, Mike, and Tom. Thank you so much, guys, for going over to FIXnotes.com/buy, becoming a vetted buyer of mortgage notes with FIXnotes. Really appreciate that. And at the moment, we'll get into it later in the show, but we do have an opportunity of assets for sale right now. So without further ado, let's get started on the show here. And we do that like so. All right, here we are, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, we've got episode number 20 starting with the overview of the industry. Then we'll talk about the tech that's used in this business. Of course, we'll move on to asset acquisition opportunities, case studies, giveaways, and more. Today's episode is going to be especially enlightening to those of you who have not bought loans before and went through the servicing transfer process and what happens next, because that is today's topic. So let me turn down the music a little bit and get right into it. Actually, before we start, I wanted to just give you guys a quick update on the show here. It's a kind of a rainy day here in the Philadelphia area. Here's bird feeder number one. If you're a first-time viewer of this show, breaks up some of the real estate mortgage note content with a little bit of bird watching, a little bit of koi gazing. We got the fish pond in the back. Fish are getting kind of slow now with the temperature. But what I wanted to tell you, which is quite unfortunate, is our secondary feeder. So this is feeder number one. Feeder number two was stolen by raccoons. So there's no feeder there anymore. This is our squirrel cam for today's episode. It was pretty crazy, but we heard this very loud, let me turn this light on. We heard a very loud slam overnight. Raccoons climbed over the roof, got to the feeder, ripped it off the hook, and then didn't end there. They actually took the feeder with them. And we can't find it anywhere on the property. I think it's probably up in one of these oak trees. Raccoon babies are feasting on our bird feed. But in any case, the show must go on. So we unfortunately do not have that secondary feeder today. All right, so let's get right into the show. Feel free to leave a comment with any questions. Happy to interrupt and work on any specific insight that you require. Just leave it in the comment box. All right, so we'll start with just a quick update on everything that we offer to you. Free resources for mortgage note investors or mortgage note prospective investors. If you're looking to get into this space, you can learn a lot from us, starting with FIXnotes.com/learn. So FIXnotes.com/learn, of course, is how to invest in mortgage notes, our free, 100% free online resource, which goes through the entire process and teaches you what you need to know about this business. So there's a whole bunch of different modules here: getting started, the market, due diligence, closing the deal, and then asset management. You can go through everything and really get a good sense of what to expect in this business before you actually buy your first note. So I'd highly encourage you to go over to FIXnotes.com/learn, learn the course for free. We also have FIXnotes.com/news. This is a news aggregator. It takes an RSS feed from around the internet, a bunch of different sources, puts them all in one place so that you can see what is going on in the market, the real estate market, the mortgage origination space, and the secondary mortgage market where loans are bought and sold. So that's a great resource for you and is updated pretty often. I try to do it at least once a week, but more often is better to keep those fresh articles on the website. And then we've got a new one here, of course, here's the little preview of FIXnotes.com/news, a curated list of high quality, timely information for you. This was a screen capture from September. Of course, we've got almost 100 articles already in October, so you're welcome to check that out there. All right, so this is a new one for you, FIXnotes.com/terms. If you've already read the course, this is a great place to brush up on a glossary of all of the lingo you need to understand, the distressed debt glossary. Also 100% free from A to Z, everything you need to know based on the terms that you should understand before you get into the business. So great reference, great resource for you there. And then finally, the latest and greatest, this is actually premium content, our first, and we introduced this last week, but this is our first upsell for you. This is the Mortgage Notes Mastermind. FIXnotes.com/MNM is how you reach that. And it is a very cool, I think, an amazing resource. Includes industry events, a forum, so you can discuss things with me for free, well, with no added cost. Case studies, all of the case studies we do on this show are then aggregated in more detail. We've got an entire database of every single county. If you look at the screen share here, these are all the details on whether or not a county is e-recordable, whether or not there is online records for taxes or public records and deeds. And then we've got the same for every state, whether or not it's judicial versus non-judicial, whether it's a homeowners association super lien state. And then finally, two more things here. We've got inventory records that correspond to our case studies, and then document templates. So these are all documents that you can use to escalate and improve your business with some tried and true formats for letters to send to the borrower, assignments and satisfaction document templates, modification agreements, a whole bunch of resources there for you at FIXnotes.com/MNM. So that's it for the sales pitch. Let's get into the content industry overview. So of course we want to start out with a couple of events. Actually, we only have one event on the calendar at the moment. We've had a pretty busy season of conferences though. So if you guys were tuning in to the latest events, I was a speaker and a panelist in the last few. So you can definitely go back through the archives and get the links to watch those videos that I think have been recorded. And I am hoping to get those sessions, the panels and the keynotes that I've presented, and include them as part of the content in the mastermind. But that's an initiative we're working on. And that's the goal with the mastermind, is to continue to develop and add value and make that super useful to you as a note investor. All right, so the next event that's coming up is November 6th and 7th. That's Note Expo, 2 days of live virtual workshops and sessions. I gave this caveat last week, I think Note Expo is a little bit of a pitch fest. They do some upselling, so it's not as quite as content focused as our show. We can definitely meet some great industry participants and learn a little bit more there at Note Expo. All right. Let's get right into the market pricing. So we updated this for the fourth quarter, and we did see some changes on the non-performing side, about 1% or 100 basis points difference. The prices went down in the non-performing segments. In the performing side, we haven't sold a lot of performing paper this month, so I did not see much of a change in pricing. However, I do have some reperforming loans that are potentially going to be sold in the next couple weeks that will give us a great insight into these ranges. And right off the bat, some of the industry feedback that I've received about reperforming loans is the junior lien side here. The 12.3% cash on cash return that we're seeing is actually a little bit high. I have investors who are buying junior liens at 11.5% yields, which equates to a higher price. You pay more, your yield decreases. So that's the main thing to understand on this chart. On this side, we're pricing based on yield. So higher yields equal lower prices. And on this side, we're pricing based on fair market value or based on unpaid principal balance, where lower percentages equal lower prices. So we've went into this detail many times, so feel free to go back to some previous episodes to get a more in-depth review of what this chart means. But our last few episodes have been going on to like an hour and a half long. So we're gonna try to keep it to about an hour today and not get into too much detail. But if you have any questions, be happy to pause and answer them for you at this time or at any other point during the presentation that you'd like to stop and maybe clarify something. So happy to do that when we get there. But for now, let's talk about the next phase, which is non-performing waterfall evaluation. Before you buy a loan, you need to understand how to do the research, how to analyze all of these different attributes along the way and pricing these loans based on the attributes that are achieved. So right from the get-go, you guys know this, we check secured versus unsecured. What that means in the most simplest terms is that the borrower who owes the money on the mortgage still owns the property. And when you first check, when you start your due diligence process and you check the property address to see who the owner is, if that owner does not match the borrower name that's on the mortgage agreement or the data tape that you're reviewing for purchase, that loan is most likely unsecured and is at this point no longer collectible through the foreclosure process. But once we've confirmed that it is secured, and there is a bit of nuance there because certain transfers of ownership of the property can still be subject to the existing liens. For example, a quitclaim deed can transfer the ownership of a home, but still maintain the enforceability of the debt that you're looking at purchasing. So that can be done with county record research or title reports, a little bit more in depth. But just from the get-go here, we're going to talk about secured loans being loans where the borrower matches the current property owner. So once we know it's secured, then we determine whether it's in first position or whether it's in second position. That data should be provided to you by the seller with the data tape of all of the attributes of that loan. But it's an important thing in due diligence in general to trust, but to verify. You never want to take the seller's word for it entirely, and they're going to have disclaimers on the data tape that say independent due diligence required. So make sure you confirm the lien position on your own, either by yourself, by looking at the public records for the position of the other liens on the property, or by ordering a title report or perhaps a total view report from DataTree, which we've talked about before and we'll touch again on the text section of the call. That will give you an idea as to whether or not the loan matches the lien position that the seller has told you that it was. Hold on, let me just silence my phone here. Sorry about that, guys. So once you know if it's first or second position, then you're going through the rest of these boxes. Value of the property and the equity that protects your lien. It's important in both first and second position. Bankruptcy considerations can be scary, but are very important. And at the end of the day, bankruptcy gives you a lot more detail into a borrower's financial situation, so it's not a bad thing. And it can help the borrower, so bankruptcy is not to be entirely avoided, just to be understood. Then we've got occupancy, whether or not the subject property is still, if the borrower still resides in the subject property. And then finally, title and taxes for first liens and first lien status, and then equity being the big driver of price in the second position side. So once again, we have drilled into many of these, actually every single one of these attributes we've drilled into in past episodes, really dug into more details. So today we're kind of just taking an overview, high-level look to give you an idea if you have questions as to what questions you might have. So if you have any at all, just let me know what areas you'd like me to drill into in more detail in the future, or perhaps on today's call. So that's the waterfall evaluation prior to purchasing a loan. Once you have analyzed your asset, you've made an offer, you've accepted that offer, you've got a contract in place, and the servicing transfer process has been initiated, that's the topic of today's call, and that's where we're going to be here with the timeline post-transfer. I'm going to pull myself off here so you can see a little bit more, but this is the post-transfer timeline to understand exactly what collection phase and different requirements are necessary along the way. So right off the bat, we'll see this day 0. This is red highlights here around because it's the servicing transfer. The servicing transfer is happening on day 0, so 15 days prior to the servicing transfer is when this goodbye letter section starts. So Yellow is the earliest possible date that these different collection activities can be initiated. Green is the generally accepted timeline. And then as you go through the steps here, and we'll get into more detail very soon, you're able to escalate your collection efforts. So we're going to drill in on just the first batch here. These are what I'm going to define as the servicer letters. So let's talk about these in a little bit more detail. Starting with the goodbye letter. So as you guys can see on the timeline, the goodbye letter needs to go out at least 15 days prior to the servicing transfer date. So 15 days is the date, the notice period that the borrower has to understand that the servicing of their loan is being transferred. Now, if you have borrowed a mortgage of your own, if you owe money on a home that you've purchased, then you may be familiar with the fact that most, if not all, mortgages are sold pretty much immediately after origination. So you have maybe received a goodbye letter before from your lender identifying a new servicing company. This just happened to me actually with every property that I purchased. Every single loan has been transferred to a new servicer. And the reason that is because most originating banks will be in the business of just originations. They're not in the business of holding and servicing their own loans. So what they do is originate the file, get all the docs together, and then sell that to a servicing company or a lender that is more set to actively manage the property or the account over time. So to complement the goodbye letter is the hello letter. And the hello letter is the, after the servicing transfer, it's the new servicer's introduction to the borrower. So the hello letter and goodbye letter are specified in the Real Estate Settlements Procedures Act, RESPA. When you hear the word RESPA letter, what they mean is the hello letter. And sometimes it'll be referred to RESPA letter as both the hello and the goodbye, because those documents combined are what identifies and notifies the borrower of the transfer in servicing. So once the hello letter and the goodbye letter have been sent, the borrower has been notified of their change in servicing. Then the next letter that's sent is the FDCPA letter, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So this is sent when the loans are fully onboarded with the new servicer. So this means that the balances have been uploaded and reconciled, which is the process in which the previous servicer sends over the loan boarding data to the new loan servicer, which includes the interest rates and maturity dates and payment dates, the unpaid principal balance, any arrears that may be included on the file. All that data gets boarded with the new loan servicer, and then as soon as those balances have been reconciled, which just means that they've confirmed that everything is accurate based on the original documents, then they can send the FDCPA letter, which most servicers will consider the initial contact date. And this must be sent no more than 30 business days after the transfer and prior to making any calls to the borrower, because this establishes the accurate accounting on the loan, and that's why it needs to be reconciled. These balances need to be accurate before this letter goes out, or then corrective letters and the efforts to correct any issues are going to create an uphill battle right from the beginning. So make sure your servicer has reconciled the balances and then gets this FDCPA letter to establish the accurate accounting. Now, a delay could be possible in this phase if the previous servicer's data was incomplete, or perhaps there was an escrow balance or a lost draft, which is an insurance payoff, or unapplied funds that are being held on the account. In order to properly reconcile the balances, the old servicer needs to send over those balances to the new servicer to be properly allocated to the account. So depending on who the existing loan servicer is and how on top of their data they are, there could be some delays getting this FDCPA letter out. The borrower now has 30 days to dispute by sending a QWR, a qualified written response, before any collection activity can be started. So it's this QWR process is really the borrower's chance to dispute the transaction or any of the balances or anything that they may see on that FDCPA letter that is not accurate. So a QWR, you're going to have to get to understand those and see the different formats that these borrowers submit QWRs. They're typically done by a borrower's attorney, although borrowers, if they're savvy, could send those letters on their own. And really what it is sort of a roadblock for the lender to to hurdle over. You need to provide the original note and mortgage and the assignment chain and the allonge chain. You need to show the borrower the accounting on the loan and make sure that they're aware that you are the legitimate lender, and at this point you're the person that they would be working with to get the loan paid off or resolved. So a QWR needs to be addressed very quickly and professionally. You need to provide the data that's being requested. And that's going to set in motion the rest of the process. Because once the borrower has seen that FDCPA letter, has confirmed that it's agreeable, or if they've disputed it, that you've confirmed that you have the necessary backup documentation, then you're starting on a fresh footing to begin the resolution process. So one note to make here is that these letters, the FDCPA letter, cannot be sent to loans that have passed their statute of limitations, or the SOL, or if they're in bankruptcy. So this is a scrub that your loan servicer is going to do to make sure that none of the loans are in bankruptcy, and also that none of the loans have passed their statute of limitations. So we've talked about statute of limitations before. Essentially what that means is that the collectability on the loan has passed based on the local jurisdiction's timelines. And in most states, promissory notes have a 5 to 10 year statute, and that date begins either on the charge-off date or the last payment date. Some states have a statute that's based on maturity dates, which also needs to be correctly reviewed. And actually, in last week's episode, we talked about some Excel formats that you can use to, Excel formulas that you can use to automatically check the statute of limitation flag by looking at the statute in each state and then comparing that to the dates that you have on your data tape. Excuse this bagel. Let me hide that. All right, so let's get back into the chart here and move on to the next section. So we went through the servicing letters. So once we get past that, we want to move right down to the welcome calls, collection calls, and early intervention. So this is your next steps, your collection. So in this segment of your post-transfer process, you're going to start with welcome calls. So this is started 5 days after the RESPA letter is sent. This gives you a small buffer for postal delivery. And this informs the borrower of the new servicer, answers questions. These aren't hard collection attempts at this time. This is a soft collection approach that allows us to discuss loss mitigation options with the borrower if the borrower is presenting that conversation. Or if they are not, it's just a matter of answering questions, getting them familiar with the fact that there is a new servicer on the account. So once welcome calls have went on, and you'll see this can happen from day 5 all the way to day 35, that gives you a month of these early welcome calls, then you can pursue the collection calls. Now these start 30 days after the FDCPA letter is sent, and this is what begins the actual loss mitigation process. This is a little bit more of a hard collection campaign. Door knocking is possible. You can hire door knockers to serve the borrower with a welcome package. If you have what some investors will call a shock and awe package, explaining why they're a great lender, what type of opportunities they can offer to discount the loan or to provide repayment terms. So door knockers can be available here. Now, you're not going to be making calls that are on loans beyond the statute of limitations or in bankruptcy. However, what the statute of limitations on promissory notes or a bankruptcy does to an account is strips the borrower's personal liability for the promissory note side. As you guys know, in this business, there's two major documents, the note and the mortgage. The note, the promissory note, that's the borrower's promise to repay the debt. It sets the terms of the agreement and the necessities if they were to default. The mortgage is what connects the note to the physical home as collateral for that agreement. So when a bankruptcy strips personal liability or a statute of limitations removes the personal liability of the promissory note, you still have the mortgage, which is evidences a lien on the property. So you can pursue foreclosure if it's not an active bankruptcy. If it's an active bankruptcy, you need to file a motion for relief from stay. You can learn about that more in our previous bankruptcy episode. But you can pursue that mortgage, the security instrument, you can pursue the lien on the property without pursuing the promissory note. So that's an important distinction to make when you're getting to this stage of the process with collections. You can still pursue the legal lien on the property, even if you can't pursue the borrower for the personal liability. All right, so that was a little segue. Let's get back to the next phase. So this is collection calls, where 30 days, oh wait, we already talked about that one. This is really where you escalate the collection efforts. And then finally, early intervention. So now this is sent 30 days after the FDCPA letter is sent as well, but this must be sent when the borrower is contractually delinquent for more than 45 days. So there are some different intervention requirements for USDA loans or VA loans or FHA loans. But for a standard loan, this just needs to be sent within 45 days after the contractual delinquency, and then only sent once within a 180-day period. So what's kind of interesting about this is that a copy of the prior servicer's letter will meet this requirement. So if the loan has already been in default for quite a while and a previous lender has had their servicer send an early intervention letter, then this can escalate your collection process a little bit because it only needs to be sent once. So as long as the previous servicer sent it within that 180-day period, then you're all set and it meets the requirement. So that's the next phase. That's the collection calls. These are more of the soft collection approach. It does escalate a little bit, but we haven't gotten to the attorney, the escalation of the legal process. Let's take a quick breather. Let's check on our cams. Oh wait, over here. Nothing over there. Let's try the new squirrel cam. Nothing. We got a car. That's the excitement for the day. Hopefully some action over at the koi pond. No. Not much. Not much. Everybody's kind of hibernating a bit today. It's a cold and rainy day in the Philadelphia area. So perfect day to get back into the call with the next slide, which is the escalation of legal. Let's scroll right down to pre-demand letter, demand letter, and attorney referrals. So you can see right off the bat, the yellow section, this signifies that this could start very early, the pre-demand letter, but generally it started about 50 days after the servicing transfer. The pre-demand letter is sent 15 days after the 45-day letter is sent. And what this does is notify the borrower that they're in default and they are at risk of foreclosure. So it can be sent, and that's why this is yellow, it can be sent as early as 30 days. But since there's all these other requirements, these letters and filings that need to be made prior, not filings, but notices to the borrower, it normally takes place around day 50, the pre-demand letter. And that excludes Arizona, Washington, and California, where the process is just a little bit different. So the demand letter then, this is really, the pre-demand is pretty soft. The demand letter escalates things because that's telling the borrower that you are imminently pursuing the foreclosure if there's not some activity or some communication between the borrower and the lender at this time. So this is sent in day 15 to 30 days after the 45-day loss mitigation letter. And there's some differences in Washington and California, which you want to talk to your local counsel about. But the loan must be a minimum of 60 days delinquent in order to send the demand letter. So this does require the complete assignment and allonge chain. All of the collateral docs must be in order. And in most states, you want to have an attorney send that directly. There are some exceptions where you can send that through your servicer or through the lender directly. But it does make sense to send through an attorney because then if you do pursue the foreclosure, you've already got counsel in place and you're ready to go with the next step. So the copies of these letters must be provided to your servicer within 15 days of being sent. That's a really important consideration to make in this business when you are working with multiple counterparties. For example, a loan servicer and an attorney, you want to make sure that the line of communication there is open, either through you as a third party, kind of quarterbacking the deal, or directly between the servicer and the lender, or the servicer and the attorney. Because, and here's a very recent example, can come up, is if you do not let your servicer know that you're expecting, for example, a discounted payoff, your servicer will not accept the funds to pay off the loan because they're waiting for the full payoff. Until you approve, as a lender, until you approve a discount, that borrower is not able to make a discounted payoff. So had an example of that very recently this past week where I was working with my attorney. My attorney presented the discounted settlement offer to the borrower, and the settlement offer was achieved. They sent in the check to our servicer, Land Home Financial Services. But Land Home did not receive the notification that that funds would be coming in, so their cashiering team rejected the check for $8,000, and right now we're trying to track it down and get it deposited. So that's a very real thing that can happen if you are not connecting all of your different counterparties. So an important point to make here with the demand letter is to make sure that the servicer has access to that letter within 15 days of it being sent, so they know what's going on the collection side. Because this is another thing that I do recommend, using a client-managed servicing account. And by allowing the client, the lender, to service the loans, not to service the loans, but to manage the loans, the lender can actually have a lot more flexibility and use a lot of other services from attorneys and door knockers and other counterparties that then can be plugged in with the loan servicer when a deal has been reached. So a client-managed servicing account means that the loan servicer is not the one making the collection calls. They're the ones collecting the payments, sending the statements, generally accounting for the loan, but the lender is managing the collection process with other counterparties involved, which I feel is a much more effective way to manage your own portfolio, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to care about it and treat it the way that you will as the owner. Some servicers will go through the motions but won't have the same success that you will when working with outsourced legal teams and door knockers and other collection counterparties. All right, so let's go back over to that. And then finally, after the demand letter, 30 days after the demand letter has been sent, you want to refer to legal counsel. So this is easiest if your foreclosure attorney was the one who sent the demand letter, because in that case, they've already gotten the documents in place and they're familiar with the account. But in the states where you do not need to send it through a foreclosure attorney, you will need to send your new counsel all of the track record on the loan, the history, the letters that have been sent, to confirm that all of those I's have been dotted, the T's have been crossed. So in New York, there's a 90-day requirement from the demand letter being sent, a minimum of 90 days delinquent. But in New York, that extends a little bit because you have to send a demand letter and then wait 3 more months. So most attorneys will require a good faith deposit or a retainer at this time in order to proceed. So that's why a lot of investors will send their demand letter through a counsel that offers more of a pro rata approach, where you can pay in piecemeal. You can pay just for the demand letter. Demand letter might cost $75 to $150 to send. And then hopefully the borrower will respond to that letter and you'll be able to get a workout done without escalating to the next phase of legal. But when you actually do need to move forward with the foreclosure, that's when you're going to be spending about $1,500 to $2,000 in retainer fees, a good faith deposit with your attorney to begin that legal process. And I would say that there's an advantage here of economies of scale when you're working with one attorney on multiple accounts. And that's going to be a very critical part of your development as a note investor reaching scale, is to work with the same legal counsel. If they're licensed in multiple states, that makes it all the better, because then you're going to have some discounts for volume and you'll be able to have a more consistent rapport with your attorney rather than just having one loan with them, which can be sometimes a little bit of an issue. Not an issue, but you could be you could kind of be swept under the rug if you're a small fish and they've got other bigger clients with many, many accounts in order. So definitely something to consider when you're looking at loans to purchase. Work with attorneys who are licensed in multiple states and maybe focus your more of the episode to go. But this was like a high level overview with some drilling into the various different steps in the collection process. I hope this was useful to you. Please leave a comment after we publish the video if you want me to get into more detail in an upcoming episode, or leave a live chat if you have a question on the fly right now. But since we don't have any comments at the moment, let's move on to the next slide here. And that is, of course, the tech overview. So tech tips, this is where we talk about all of the awesome services, hardware and software that we use to manage this business. I'm going to put myself back up here with the keys. Let me show you guys my video switcher here as well. Let's take a look around the horn while these different web services are populating. There's leaves falling, but no birds. Our squirrel cam is dead. And our koi cam, there's some pretty koi hanging out with us. All right, let's get back to it. So if you have a capable PC or Mac, a decent smartphone, and fast internet connection, not even just fast, if you can connect to the internet in general, then you can use these different services to create a very efficient automated business in the note industry. So here's a lot of the services I use. Podio is my CRM database management software. Citrix Podio Workflow Automation, which was previously called Globaflow, is how I automate Podio and connect these other services. Pacer, public access to court electronic records. That's where we review bankruptcy dockets. Right Signature is how we get digital signatures on our loan purchase sale agreements and other documents that require execution. Gmail, where I spend most of my day. Zapier is another way we connect Podio to these other services. Zapier is really cool because it can be managed without any coding knowledge, whereas Citrix Podio Workflow Automation requires some JavaScript and some additional know-how. You can get started with Zapier today without any coding knowledge. CoreLogic is a great information source for property values, credit data, bankruptcy data. We went through a whole episode on CoreLogic Credco in the past. We also did an episode on DataTree, a first American product that offers kind of automated title reports almost that are super useful. Their total view report is very good. Zillow, of course, for looking at recent comps in the area and listing details. Pro Title USA, really love the CEO Alex Goldofsky over there and the product that they offer for O&E reports, title reports, and other public record abstractor type of documents. By the way, protitle.com, protitleiusa.com/order lets you check the property owner for free. So definitely check that out if you're doing the secured versus unsecured scrub in your due diligence process. protitleiusa.com/order. You can start the order and get some summary detail before you actually put in a credit card or anything. Google Sheets and Excel, very, very important parts of the business. I use Google Sheets to host the inventory for sale on the FIXnotes website, whereas Excel is where I run all our formulas, run the model for pricing assets, managing the different offers that we receive. Last week's episode was all about Excel and pivot tables and VLOOKUP formulas, so definitely go back to last week's episode for some really in-depth information on how to use Excel with screen shares. And then finally, TransUnion TLO XP. TransUnion recently purchased TLO. TransUnion you may know as the Credit Bureau, and TLO is a skip tracing provider. They are now the same company, which makes it kind of convenient because these are both great sources of data in your due diligence process. So we're gonna kind of very, very, very high level gloss over a great feature using Excel and Microsoft Word, and that's called the mail merge. So using a spreadsheet of all of your fields that you're going to be merging into your letters and Microsoft Word using a mail merge template, what you can do is generate hundreds or thousands of PDFs instantaneously just by merging the files from your spreadsheet, the fields from your spreadsheet into a Word document template. So we can definitely go over this in the future with a screen share. I didn't prepare a screen share today because I just wanted to let you guys know about one of these awesome tools that I do use on a monthly basis in order to generate borrower letters. So when we put a campaign together with our collection team, who's a licensed servicer, a licensed attorney, what we do is send them a batch of PDFs that they print stuff into the envelopes and send out on their letterhead as our attorney. And that's something that I do to help them get the letters out quicker, and also so that I can be managing the options and the other fields that are being merged into those letters. So this is a great opportunity also to mention again the FIXnotes Mastermind group, where we offer templates. So some of the templates that we include are these options letters that you can then use a spreadsheet to merge the correct fields and generate hundreds or thousands of borrower letters just with the click of a button. And then obviously you'll review those PDFs and print and mail them to the subject accounts. So if you guys do not know about mail merge, but you are in the habit or maybe have the job of producing Word documents in bulk, definitely look into it. Along with Excel, it is a great service to save you a whole bunch of time. But that's it for tech tips for today. Let's get on over to assets for sale. I'm gonna have some coffee. As you guys can see, we were scrambling to get started with the show today. Got started a little late, didn't even finish my bagel. But it is all good because we've got more content for you. So I'm gonna go over pretty quickly here the process by which to sign up for loans for sale. So if you go to FIXnotes.com, you click Buy Notes, scroll down, sign NDA for access, you complete this form. This form is what populates the non-disclosure agreement. Once you have submitted that form, you'll get 2 emails, one with the NDA to sign, the other with access to the FIXnotes website and all of the content we have to offer. Once you click through this one, the non-disclosure agreement, you sign it through right signature, you'll get another email with your completed document, and then a confirmation that your membership has changed. So now if you go to the website and click My Account, you will be not only just course access, but course and inventory access. So once you have course and inventory access and you click Buy Notes again, you'll be taken to a new page, which has a short video with some instructions and also a list of the unmasked confidential data of all of the loans we have available for sale. So it looks like almost the same page. FIXnotes.com/buy turns into FIXnotes.com/buy NDA for non-disclosure agreement. That is the private page that you'll only be given access to once you sign the non-disclosure agreement. If you try to go to FIXnotes.com/buy NDA, you'll be given a link to sign in. And if you do not have the permissions yet, you can reach out to me to make sure that your non-disclosure agreement is processed. But if you went through the process, you will be automatically gifted access. That's all free. Our buyers are able to review loans without any additional cost. And it's something that I recommend to all note investors getting started. Review assets. Do your due diligence just as an exercise. Even if it's before you're ready to close a deal, you're going to learn so much by going through the motions. So I would highly recommend that. And just to overview what we've got available for sale right now. The loans on the list, this screen share was from last month or maybe even the month before. But right now we've got a portfolio of, it's a bulk portfolio of everything that's left in the U.S. mortgage resolution inventory. USMR is my primary client. They're the ones who are selling most of the loans, if not all of the loans we have on offer right now. And this portfolio is available in bulk only. So I do apologize if you guys were not able to award any loans in the previous one-off offering. Now we are shifting to a bulk sale, and we've got 3 or 4 investors who are running through the due diligence process right now to buy, at this point, around $250,000, a portfolio of $1.5 million of unpaid principal balance. So if you're interested in that deal, that's going to be the best opportunity to diversify and get the best price. Those opportunities I can send to you via email once you've signed the non-disclosure agreement. So definitely check that out and send me a question, send me an email if you have any questions about the next steps there. All right, let's get into the best part of the show, the case studies. This is where we review actual opportunities. Today's is a case study on a non-performing first lien. It is secured by vacant land. So this deal was actually resolved through a modification. So we haven't done a modification in a while, a modification case study, but this one is a good example of how even a vacant land collateral, a parcel of land that does not have a home on it, can still be a desirable asset for a borrower to retain, giving them the incentive to work out a payment plan to pay off this loan over time. So this actually resulted in a reperforming loan value of $16,028 once we were able to get that cash flow started. So let's get right into it. This is a vacant land that's worth $30,000. There's $681 of unpaid property taxes, which leaves $29,319 of equity left over to pay the $32,936 unpaid principal balance. So you can see right off the bat, it's almost in the money for equity, but because there's no other liens on the property other than the back taxes, which are not yet a lien. They would become a lien or a tax certificate if they were left unpaid. But in this case, we've got a good amount of equity as leverage to start this conversation. And the conversation always begins with 3 questions. What happened? Where are you now? And what do you want to do? And those questions are so enlightening because they give us a picture into the borrower's situation and where they're at and what they want to proceed with to actually get a deal done. And the name of the game in the note business, in the distressed debt space, is to work with the borrowers. You do not want to get into this business with the intention of acquiring the property, because if the borrower wants to reinstate the loan and to keep the home, then your strategy is going to fall apart right from the beginning. So you really want to go into each situation with an open mind and with the intention of helping the borrower. So we always ask these 3 questions, and in this case, the first answer, what happened? Well, they purchased 2 vacant lots in 2003, and they hit rough times. In fact, one of their lots was already wiped out by taxes. And a bit of an aside here, which was pretty awesome for US Mortgage Resolution, the owner of this loan at the time, we got a surplus funds payoff. So 2 vacant lots that were right next to each other, I think lot 3, lot 4. Lot 4 was sold for delinquent taxes. But because when it went to auction, it sold for more than the balance that the tax balance that needed to be paid, and enough to pay us $40,000. We actually got a check of surplus funds on the second lot for $40,000 at the settlement of the tax sale. So a new property owner bought the home. It was like a foreclosure auction. They bid it up, and the proceeds from that foreclosure auction went to pay the taxes and the other liens on the property. So right off the bat, we had a good idea of the value of this property. Foreclosure sales are most of the time the least valuable, the least best price that you're going to get for a home if it's in a distressed sale. But even in a distressed sale on a vacant piece of land, it was worth $40,000. Now, the main consideration here was that Lot 3, the subject property that we're talking about with this case study, is a smaller, less desirable lot than Lot 4. However, it's in the same neighborhood, it's right next door, so it definitely has some of that same value. And maybe even the buyer who purchased Lot 4 would be interested in Lot 3. But in any case, where are they at now? They do want to keep the lot. So they really missed out on the first lot. They actually have 2 sons, and they bought 1 lot for each of their sons. One of their sons is at a loss here because he doesn't have his lot anymore. But the other son, actually, he was part of the resolution process, part of the discussion, because at the end of the day, this was going to be his property. They decided that they could afford a little bit more than the original monthly payment of $173. So they're working on paying off that $681 of outstanding taxes, and then they'd be willing to negotiate a modification agreement on the balance. So they did want a little bit of a principal reduction based on the fact that the equity position here was a little bit less than the balance that was owed. So in order to build some good faith and to start our modification on the right foot, we were able to reduce the balance to $30,000 and sign a modification for 300 monthly payments at $202 per month, 6.5% interest rate. So that was how we turned this vacant lot into a cash flowing asset with borrowers who are very much interested in retaining the property and keeping it in their family. So this property, this asset, this note, cost $3,000 as a non-performing loan. That's only 9% of the unpaid principal balance. And the reason why this was such a steal, really, such a great deal, is for starters, it was purchased as part of a bulk portfolio. So this price you would not see as a one-off, but mainly because this asset was vacant land. It wasn't an actual home. And in most cases, vacant land notes trade for significantly less than single-family home notes or condo notes or notes that are secured by properties that are inhabitable. This was uninhabitable. There was nothing there. It was just vacant land. So let's take it from acquisition through to disposition here. It took 16 months, $820 worth of expenses for the due diligence, onboarding the loan with our servicer, and then the collection process. And it resulted in a reperforming loan value of $16,028. And we'll show you how we got to that in just a minute. Couple of takeaways here. For starters, look for duplicate values in your portfolio in the borrower name field. So I think one of the things we talked about when we were reviewing Excel last week was conditional formatting and checking for duplicates. I think we talked about that. But in any case, there's a button in Excel called conditional formats or conditional formatting, and then you click highlight, and then you click duplicate values. You can Google that just if you need a kind of tutorial on where to find those fields in Excel in the ribbon at the top. But what that does is allows you to select a field and see if there's any duplicates. For example, in last name or first name, obviously you'll see some dupes that aren't actually duplicates. But if you do identify the first and the last name match, and perhaps it's in the same area, like this deal where we had 2 lots that were owed by the same borrower, then that gives you an opportunity to negotiate at a level a bit higher than just one asset. You can be working with the borrower on resolving multiple assets with them. So in this case, we were attempting to reach the borrower to work out a deal on lot 4. Fortunately, we were not able to get in touch, and the big wake-up call for them was losing that lot to foreclosure through the tax balance. But then when they did get in touch with lot 3, they were able to work out a deal and at this point get on a modification agreement. So this is kind of a takeaway in reference to what I mentioned earlier about going with the flow, working with the borrower, not against the borrower. But don't count on a modification agreement. I mentioned not buying loans if you're just focused on taking back the collateral, but you should also not be buying loans just to get a modification agreement in place. If the borrower does not want the property, which is often the case with vacant land, then you need to work with them to either liquidate the home through a short sale or take back a deed in lieu of foreclosure. But you can't always expect the modification agreement. But you should be prepared with some terms of the modification agreement that fit for your investment prior to actually getting to the point where you need the modification in place. Because this gives you what I would call a point of indifference, a point where if you can get $200 a month on the loan, that fits your needs or, as an investor, or if the borrower is interested in a short sale and to sell the property, then that's the direction that you can take. So it's nice to have those numbers kind of baked into your due diligence in the beginning when you acquire a loan, so you know what to expect if you do get to that point. So sometimes I'll use a discounted amount to the original monthly payment. So in this case, the original monthly payment was $173 per month. So you could model the loan at maybe like $100 a month. In this case, we were able to work out a deal for $200 a month. So it definitely hit the numbers that we needed to get a pretty strong yield. And you'll see that in just a minute. The final takeaway here is to make some concessions to build good faith with the borrower. In this case, a principal reduction. It builds rapport and it does ensure years of consistent cash flow. I had a conversation on a loan just yesterday, and the borrower did have equity in the home. There could have been some negative equity possibilities depending on the condition of the property, but at face value, it looked like it had equity. But in order to get a really solid modification done, we offered a small principal reduction because that shows the borrower that we're agreeable to working with them. We understand the struggles that they had. This particular borrower was an ESL teacher of 20 years and had some trouble with the renovations on her home, being burned by some contractors. There was some hardships that were involved that we were able to considerably address by reducing the balance of the loan that we were modifying. So definitely important, and if you can afford it as an investor, which most of us can when you see the discounts we're purchasing these loans for, it's a good idea to make that easier for the borrower to create a consistent, achievable cash flow for them. Not trying to take blood from a stone, but working with them to get the best possible resolution for all parties. So the reason why we have a $16,028 value on this loan is because of the cash-on-cash return. So as we mentioned in the pricing at the beginning of this presentation, when you're pricing cash flowing loans, you're pricing based on yield. And at $200 a month, the reperforming loan value of $16,028 offers a buyer a 14% cash on cash return. All they have to do is collect $202 a month net of their servicing fees, and every single year they're recouping 14% of their investment. And because they're getting a substantial discount, $16,000 versus a balance of $32,000, a substantial balance on the unpaid principal balance, there's a lot of additional upside should the borrower refinance the loan or pay it off early. And what's great about this is it offers an internal rate of return of about 61% to the non-performing loan investor who does the fix and flip. So if you bought this for $3,000 and you went through 16 months of collection and then you sell it for $16,000, you're earning a 61% internal rate of return. If you did it in a year, it would be like 80 to 90% internal rate of return. But based on the time value of money, it decreases just a little bit. And that gives you, as the non-performing loan investor, a great return to get this borrower back on track on their loan and find a cash flowing investor who would be interested in receiving that cash flow on a monthly basis. So this is a great modification example on a deal that really didn't look like it would be a modification in the beginning. Vacant land, we typically, especially vacant land with delinquent taxes, we kind of expect that the borrower no longer wants anything to do with the home. But in this case, we're pleasantly surprised to work with the borrower to get a modification agreement in place. All right, let's get on to the next case study. This one is a non-performing second position loan secured by a single family residential home, and it was a loan sale. So we sold this loan for $9,344. Oh, my bad, it wasn't a single family home, that was a little glitch. This is actually a condo. This one was secured by a home that was in a homeowners association. That's an important thing to consider when you're looking at condos and townhouses that are within an HOA, because an HOA is just another counterparty that needs to get paid in addition to property taxes and first liens. So in this case, the property was worth $241,800. The senior lien was $108,895. That leaves $132,905 of equity. Plenty of equity to protect that UPB of $12,697. So we're going with a little bit of a different approach than what happened where you know what you want to do, because this is a loan sale. So we're looking at bulk or retail, due diligence findings, and then a final purchase decision. So this was purchased as part of a blended bulk portfolio. The pricing you see down here, oh wow. Okay, so that $9,000 number was incorrect. This was sold for $5,684, 45% of the unpaid principal balance. My mistake, guys. So this, as part of the bulk portfolio, was a slight discount, because when you look at these numbers, the amount of equity that's here really supports a very strong, maybe top of the range price. The only downside here, I would say, would be the fact that it's secured by a condo. Single family residential properties are generally safer because of the lack of the HOA and stronger property values in general. But that 45% of unpaid principal balance is a pretty good price when you put it in as part of a portfolio. Some due diligence findings. Well, the property actually was a higher value than the data tape exhibited. The senior lien was current, so they're making their payments on their first position loan. There's plenty of equity, no past due property taxes, no homeowners association dues. They're most likely owner occupied. And at this point, there's been no resolution progress at all. So the next step is to escalate the account to the demand letter with a local Florida council. So this is really going to be what notifies the borrower that the lender is serious, we need to work something out. And the reason why the previous lender, US Mortgage Resolution, didn't file a demand letter in this case, because it's not really US Mortgage Resolution's expertise to manage foreclosures across the country. USMR is more of a trader, a deal maker. We look to acquire portfolios of loans, get some of the deals worked out that are able to be resolved without escalating to legal, and selling the loans to local investors who are more suited to manage those foreclosure processes if necessary, and recapitalize to buy more loans. So a lot of the loans you'll see that go into these loan sale case studies are assets that have had soft collection approaches, some letters sent, but nothing that escalates to the next phase. So most investors who are purchasing loans from us are prepared to escalate to the next step of the process. Final purchase decision here was to include in their package deal at 45 cents on the dollar, which worked out to $5,684. So let's look at some other considerations here. There was some pricing reduction for the multiple asset purchase. Having a couple loans in the trade or a bulk portfolio definitely offers some wholesale discounts. The due diligence process on this one took less than 2 weeks. So that was from indicative offer all the way to funding. We were able to get this deal funded within 2 weeks of initially providing the data tape. And there was no escrow third party necessary. This was actually our first trade with this specific buyer. But because there was some intrinsic faith, I'm sure that the buyer had spoke with some of my other clients who buy loans from us and understood that we had the collateral and the servicing all ready to be transferred. There wasn't any need for an escrow agent in this transaction, or what we'd call a bailee letter. Both escrow and bailee letters are ways that a third party can be introduced to a loan sale in order to confirm that the documents are in place and make the exchange happen with some protections for both the buyer and the seller in the process. But because of the trust that we've built as a loan seller through FIXnotes, of course, and through US mortgage resolution, we very rarely, I haven't done any deals through escrow this year. The last deal we did through escrow was for over $5 million. So that's a totally different ballpark. And that was 2 years ago. So at this point, I would not expect to be doing escrow deals, but I would highly recommend that when you are buying loans, that you consider asking the seller for escrow, just to gauge their interest and make sure that it's something that could be done if you needed that as an additional layer of safety on the deal. So then finally, servicing transfer. We got this one initiated very quickly. Within 1 day of getting the funding received, I had an email out to the old servicer, the new servicer, the team at USMR who's going to transfer the collateral docs, and the team at the sellers, the buyer, the lender's company, so that everybody's on the same page to review the assignments and the allonges. So they're reviewing the transfer documents for completeness and accuracy, approving those documents for the US mortgage resolution team to execute and include in the original collateral package, and then as well as initiating the servicing transfer with our servicer, Land Home Financial Services, to transfer the account to the new lender's servicer as well. So we actually got the collateral shipment out very quickly on this deal as well. 3 days after funding, we were able to have all of the docs packaged up with the complete assignment and allonge chains and shipped out to the buyer. So this was a pretty much textbook deal as far as the timelines were concerned, and the pricing was a little, I think, on the low side because of the bulk nature of the deal, but definitely works out to leave a lot of meat on the bone for this buyer to work out a deal with the homeowner. That's a win-win all around. All right, so that's it for the case studies. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, guys, or people in general. I'm trying not to say guys. All of you fine folks. 15-minute consultations are my giveaway. So every week, every day, I can offer these 15-minute consultations. In the beginning of our career on YouTube, we were using these 15-minute consultation giveaways as a way to get more likes and comments and subscriptions. But we've reached 100 subscribers, so now we have a custom domain, FIXnotes.com, YouTube.com/FIXnotes. So we would only really need you guys to subscribe if you want to get future content. But I'll be happy to offer you these 15-minute consultations for anybody who wants to chat. So just to give you a quick overview here, I do appreciate the subscriptions, like the video, comment on the channel. It does help us a lot with the YouTube algorithm to reach more people, provide content and information for more prospective note investors who are getting into the space. Helps everybody, so please definitely subscribe, like, and comment. But these 15-minute consultations, robbymax.youcanbook.me will give you a calendar of my schedule. You can select a 15-minute time block, and I'd be happy to chat about entrepreneurship, about your business, about real estate in general. I'm a rental portfolio investor as well. And let's actually look at the birds real quick, since we finally got some birds. Oh, there they go. That's the tufted titmouse. You can tell by the kind of golden color on the belly and the little tuft. 3 tufted titmouse. Beautiful. We actually saw some birds today. So again, I'd be happy to get on a consultation call with you guys for free. The first 15 minutes is absolutely included. We can talk about anything that adds the most value to your business. And then from there, I do charge for consulting time. So if you did want to book additional time beyond 15 minutes, be happy to get that on the schedule with you. Let's just watch these birds for a little bit. Yep. So the problem with the previous feeder that was, taken away by the raccoons, it was filled with this. I don't know if I can show you. I can't really point, but see the seeds on top. So the bottom seeds are sunflower seeds. The ones on top are what they call like no mess. It's like nuts and different seeds that don't have shells. So the squirrels and the raccoons can really, really smell this type of food. So that's why our feeder that's right outside the office got ripped down off by the raccoons and then taken up into the tree and hasn't been seen since. So going forward, the feeder right on the house where the squirrels and raccoons have good access to it cannot be filled with these really, really tasty nuts because they can smell them from a mile away, and they come here and steal our bird treats. Let's take another round, take a look at the koi. Good. The koi cam is still on, so I'm gonna head out once we get done with the show here and go feed the fish. You're welcome to hang out and relax for a minute. I think it's maybe one of the last feedings of the year. Once the fish get too cold to eat, they start hibernating, and we need to kind of cut that off. So definitely stay tuned for that very soon. But thank you so much for watching, guys. It's always a pleasure presenting. I really do enjoy getting on this YouTube show and getting over the technical difficulties one show at a time, and answering your guys' questions and adding a lot of value, hopefully, to your note business. So just as a quick final aside here as to what we can offer you guys, we got tons of free stuff on the FIXnotes website. And then if you want to take the next step, if you want to get to the next level, join the Mortgage Notes Mastermind. There's two ways to get there: FIXnotes.com/VIP or FIXnotes.com/MNM for Mortgage Notes Mastermind. That will get you into the mastermind group where we have so much more content waiting for you to help with this business. So without further delay here, we're gonna go feed the fish. Thank you so much again for joining us. And feel free to leave a comment with any ideas, any topics you want to cover for next week's show. Don't have anything in mind just yet. Today's episode was popular demand. I had many investors who wanted to know what happens after the servicing transfer. So let me know what you guys want to learn next. All right, so let me set up my little macro here, and we're gonna run right out back. And we're gonna go feed those fish. All right. All right, welcome back to the koi pond. Let's see if the fish are want to play. It is a little too cold to give them food right now, but we'll at least see if they'll come say hi to you guys. Come on, guys. Come on out, friends. Oh, here they are. Oh man, they're very hungry. This one right here is the most friendly. This guy is a big bully. Let me see if I can bring you guys a little closer. It's going to be very sad, very, very sad when it's too cold for us to come out and hang out with the koi at the end of every episode, but we'll make do. We'll find something else to keep our blood pressure down and relax in between mortgage note content. All right, thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We'll be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. with some more mortgage note content for you all. If you have any questions in between now and then, stop by FIXnotes.com, watch our previous episodes for a bunch of other free content on the business, or feel free to reach out to me via email, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me wherever you prefer. Can hang out with the fish for a little bit longer, but I'm going to shut down the stream here, pop this back on the tripod, and get ready for next time. Have a great week.